children form attachments, sometimes those attachments form back. Let us begin.
The envelope was waiting on the kitchen table when Mara arrived. Thick cream paper, her name written in careful, slanted ink. Inside was a single sheet titled Care Instructions. 1. He must be fed at 7 a.m., 12 p.m., and 6 p.m. 2. He must be read to every night at 8:30 p.m. 3. He must not be left alone after dark. 4. He must not be turned to face the wall. 5. You must always say goodnight. At the bottom, his name is Oliver. Mara glanced toward the sitting room. The porcelain doll was seated upright in a high-backed armchair by the window, child-sized, blonde curls lacquered into place, blue glass eyes, navy sweater, and pressed gray shorts. His hands rested neatly in his lap. Someone had buckled real leather shoes onto his porcelain feet. Mara laughed under her breath. The elderly couple who hired her had been polite, but strange. They spoke of Oliver the way people speak of a son away at school. They never once used the word doll. "It comforts us," Mrs. Hargrove had said gently. "Routine keeps him calm." Routine keeps them calm, Mara thought. Still, the pay was excellent. And Oliver sat quietly where he was placed. For the first week. At 7 a.m., Mara placed a bowl of oatmeal on the small side table beside his chair. She sat across from him with her coffee. The house was silent. At 7:30, she cleared the bowl away, untouched. At 8:30 p.m., she read from a worn, leather-bound book of fairy tales. She felt ridiculous, but she read anyway. When she finished, she stood and forced a smile. "Good night, Oliver." His glass eyes reflected the lamplight, unblinking. The first time she forgot the 12 p.m. feeding, she was on the phone in the kitchen. She looked at the clock. 12:17. She sighed and hurried into the sitting room. The armchair was empty. Her stomach tightened. She scanned the room. He was sitting at the dining table. One porcelain hand rested beside an empty plate. The chair he sat in was pushed out neatly, as if he had climbed into it himself. Mara's pulse quickened. She told herself the Hargroves had moved him before leaving for their trip. They must have. They had keys. They could have come in quietly. She placed a sandwich on the plate. "I'm sorry I'm late," she said, her voice thin. The doll's head was angled slightly toward her, as if listening. The next rule she broke was Rule 4. It happened accidentally. She was vacuuming the sitting room and bumped the armchair. The doll tipped forward and hit the rug with a hollow clack. Irritated, she picked him up. For a moment, just one moment, she hesitated. Then she placed him back in the chair, facing the wall. She didn't want to look at those eyes. She turned off the vacuum. The house went silent. Behind her, something shifted. A faint scrape of leather on wood. She did not turn around. She felt watched. Not from the wall, from the doorway. She forced herself to look. Oliver stood in the archway between the sitting room and hall, standing, his porcelain feet flat against the hardwood. His head tilted slightly to one side. The leather shoes left faint scuff marks behind him. Her mouth went dry. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay, I understand." She lifted him. His body felt heavier than before, less hollow. She returned him to the armchair, facing forward. She stepped back. His head adjusted, just slightly, centering on her. That night, Mara read longer than usual. Her voice shook over the words. When she finished, she stood frozen. The final rule echoed in her mind. You must always say goodnight. She swallowed. Good night, Oliver. The lamp flickered. The porcelain eyes gleamed. She turned off the light and climbed the stairs to the guest bedroom. At 3:11 a.m., she woke to the sound of someone walking. Slow steps, measured, across the hardwood below. She lay still. The steps stopped, directly beneath her room. The air grew colder. A soft knock came at her door. 3 taps, deliberate. She did not answer. The handle turned, slowly. The door opened a fraction. Through the narrow gap, she saw the hallway. Empty. Except for something near the floor. 2 leather shoes, pointed toward her. She shut her eyes. When she opened them again, the doorway was clear. The shoes were gone. But the sound of porcelain settling echoed softly inside her room. She sat up. Oliver was seated in the chair by the window, facing her bed. His hands no longer rested in his lap. They hung at his sides, the fingers slightly curled. She had left him downstairs. She knew she had. Her breathing quickened. She slid out of bed slowly. "You're not real," she whispered. The porcelain mouth did not move, but she heard it anyway. A voice, dry, patient. "You forgot." Her stomach dropped. She tried to think. The feeding? The reading? She had done them. Her mind raced. Then she remembered. Earlier that evening, distracted and shaken, she had closed the book, stood up, and fled the room. She had not said it. She had not said goodnight. Oliver's head turned fully toward her. There was a faint cracking sound at his neck. "You must always say goodnight," the voice repeated. The porcelain jaw began to open, a thin line forming where there had been none before. Darkness showed inside. Depth, far deeper than the small, hollow head should allow. Mara staggered backward. "I'm sorry," she gasped. "Good night. Good night, Oliver." The jaw stopped widening. The room grew warmer. The eyes stilled. The hands returned to his lap. The crack at his neck smoothed. He was just a doll again, seated quietly in the chair. Mara stood there shaking for a long time. At dawn, she packed her things. She left the envelope on the kitchen table. She did not look back at the sitting room. As she stepped outside, she heard a sound from within the house. A chair scraping across hardwood. And then, 3 soft taps against the inside of the front door, waiting for someone else to read the rules and forget. They told me the bear was handmade. That was the first lie. I found it at a yard sale on the edge of town. One of those sales where everything looks sun-bleached and tired, like it's been dragged through too many summers. The old woman running it sat behind a folding table and watched me the whole time. Not friendly, not unfriendly, just waiting. The teddy bear was small, brown, missing one button eye. The other eye was glass and too clear, too sharp, like it had never aged. "How much?" I asked. She didn't look at the bear. She looked at me. "Take it," she said. "He likes you." I laughed. She didn't. I don't collect toys. I don't even like them. But I just moved into my father's old house after he passed, and the place felt hollow, too quiet, too aware of me. The bear sat on the kitchen counter the first night. I told myself I'd throw it away in the morning. At 2:13 a.m., I woke up because I heard something breathing. Not outside, not in the walls, in the room. Slow, wet, like air moving through something that didn't have lungs. I lay there staring at the ceiling. My bedroom door was open a crack. Beyond it, the hallway was black. The breathing stopped. Then I heard fabric dragging softly across hardwood. I told myself it was the house settling. I told myself that until I felt the weight. A small, deliberate weight pressing down on the edge of my mattress. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. The mattress dipped slightly deeper. The breathing started again. Closer, right beside my ear. In the morning, the bear was sitting upright on my nightstand. Its single glass eye was turned toward the pillow, toward where my head had been. I don't remember moving it. I don't sleepwalk. I picked it up. Its fur felt damp. Not with water, with something thicker. There was a faint, sour smell coming from its stitched mouth. The thread was black and uneven, like someone had sewn it shut in a hurry. I pressed the belly gently. Something shifted inside. Not stuffing. Something that resisted. That afternoon, I found a photograph in my father's old desk. It was from 1993. I was 6. I was holding the same bear. Only back then, it had 2 button eyes and a red ribbon around its neck. My father was kneeling beside me. He looked tense, forced smile. His hand was gripping my shoulder too tightly. On the back of the photo, in his handwriting, "Don't let him keep it." I don't remember the bear. I remember being sick a lot that year. Night terrors. Doctors saying it was stress. I remember telling my father that the bear talked to me, that it said it was hungry, that it didn't like when I ignored it. He threw it away. At least, that's what he told me. The second night, I locked it in the garage. I put it in a toolbox and latched it shut. At 2:13 a.m., the breathing started again. This time, it was under the bed. Slow, wet, patient. I felt the mattress dip from below, as if something small had climbed up the frame. The door to my room was closed, locked. I heard the soft thump of something dropping onto the floor. Then the slow drag of fabric. Step, drag, step, drag. It stopped beside the bed. I didn't look. I knew better than to look. The breathing came again, right at the height of my face. I felt something brush my cheek. Soft fur. And underneath it, skin. Cold. Human skin. A small hand pressed against my mouth. and something whispered through the stitched thread. You promised. I didn't remember any promise. Not until the third night. I dreamt I was 6 again, sitting cross-legged on the floor, the bear in front of me. It wasn't small in the dream. It was my size. Its button eyes were crooked. Its mouth wasn't stitched then. It was open. And inside wasn't stuffing. It was teeth. Flat human teeth, packed tightly into the hollow space. It told me if I wanted the nightmares to stop, I had to feed it. Just a little, it said. Just a piece. I remember cutting my finger, letting it soak into the fur. I remember it wasn't enough. I remember the dog going missing. I woke up choking. The bear was on my chest, heavier now. Its body was swollen, stretched tight against the seams. The stitched mouth was straining. Something inside was pushing outward. I tried to throw it off me. It didn't move. The groth eye blinked. Not the way eyes blink. Sideways. Like something inside it shifted position. The thread along its mouth began to snap. One stitch at a time. Pop. 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 The smell filled the room. Rotting meat and damp earth. The mouth split open. And inside, it wasn't teeth anymore. It was a face. Small. Pale. Childlike. Its lips were cracked and dry. Its eyes rolled toward me from within the bear's hollow body. And it spoke in a voice I recognized. My own, at 6 years old. You stopped feeding me. The weight on my chest grew unbearable. Tiny hands pushed out from the torn seams. More than 2. Dozens. Pressing. Clawing. Trying to pull themselves free. The last thing I saw before the power went out was the glass eye rolling back into the bear's head, and the empty socket turning toward the door, as if something else had just entered the room. Something bigger, hungry, and patient. It's 2:13 a.m. again. I can hear the breathing. This time, it's coming from inside my walls. And I think it's waiting for me to make another promise. The doll was already in the hallway when I moved in. The landlord said it belonged to the previous tenant's daughter. He said they left in a hurry. He said he'd get around to removing it. It sat on a narrow wooden chair halfway down the corridor between my bedroom and the bathroom. Porcelain face, faded lace dress, small hands folded neatly in its lap. Its eyes were glass, amber, too reflective. The hallway light above it flickered occasionally. The bulb needed replacing. I told myself I'd move it in the morning. That first night, I left my bedroom door open. The hallway was dim. Only the faint glow from the streetlight outside reached the doll. It didn't move. It never moved. But I couldn't shake the feeling that the air around it was wrong. Thicker, as if sound didn't travel properly past it. At 1:12 a.m., the hallway light flickered. On, off, on. The doll was still there, hands folded, head forward. Off, on. Its head was slightly angled toward my door. Not dramatically, just enough. I held my breath. Off. Darkness swallowed the hallway completely. On. The chair was empty. I sat upright in bed. The hallway was silent. The light hummed faintly. The chair sat alone beneath it. No doll. My throat tightened. I stepped out of bed slowly. The hardwood felt cold. I walked to the doorway and leaned out. The air in the hallway felt cooler than the rest of the apartment. I took one step forward. The bathroom door at the end of the hall was slightly ajar. I was certain I'd closed it. The light flickered again. On. The doll sat directly in front of the bathroom door, back facing me. Off. On. The doll was gone. The bathroom door stood fully open, dark inside. I could see the mirror above the sink reflecting the hallway. In the mirror, the doll sat in the hallway chair, facing forward. But in reality, the chair was empty. The flicker grew faster. On. Off. On. In the mirror, the doll's head turned slowly toward me. In the hallway itself, nothing stood there. Off. On. The mirror cracked down the center, a thin line splitting the reflection. And from behind that crack, I saw something else standing behind the doll. Tall, indistinct, its outline too long for the hallway. The doll did not move. It did not blink. But the shadow behind it leaned closer. The flicker stopped. The light steadied. The chair was empty. The mirror was intact. The bathroom was silent. I stepped backward. The hallway light buzzed louder. The bulb dimmed slightly. And then I heard it. Not footsteps. Not scraping. A soft fabric shift. Behind me. I turned slowly. The doll stood at the threshold of my bedroom. Hands still folded. Feet perfectly aligned. It had not walked. It had not been heard. It was simply there. The amber eyes reflected my shape. The face remained serene. Its mouth closed in a polite porcelain smile. The hallway light flickered again. On. The doll was closer. Off. On. Its head tilted slightly. Off. On. Its hands were no longer folded. They hung at its sides. The lace sleeves darker near the cuffs, as if stained. I felt pressure in my ears, like descending underwater. The space behind the doll grew darker, not shadow from lighting, depth, as if the hallway extended infinitely behind it. The flicker returned. On. The doll was inches from me. Off. On. Its face filled my vision. The porcelain surface hairline cracked across one cheek, a fissure widening. Through it, something moved. Not mechanical, not hollow. A slow, wet blink beneath ceramic skin. The mouth parted slightly. No teeth. Just darkness. And from that darkness, a breath. Cold, smelling faintly of damp earth. The hallway light burst. Glass shattered. The apartment fell into total black. I stood frozen, listening. Nothing moved. No footsteps. No scraping. Just the faint hum of electricity dying in the walls. I reached forward slowly. My fingers touched porcelain. Smooth. Still. The doll stood in front of me, motionless. I exhaled. A shaky sound escaped my throat. The porcelain mouth opened. Not fast, not violently. Just enough. And from inside, I saw the hallway. Endless. Rows of identical chairs. Identical dolls. All facing forward. All still. Behind them, in the darkness, something vast, waiting. The light came back on suddenly. Bright. Overhead bulb replaced. New. White. The hallway looked normal. The doll was back in its chair, halfway down the corridor. Hands folded. Head straight. I didn't sleep. I packed my things at dawn. When I carried the last box toward the front door, I glanced down the hallway one final time. The chair was gone. The hallway extended unbroken from bedroom to bathroom. No furniture. No doll. Just an uninterrupted stretch of narrow space. Longer than I remembered. Far longer. And at the very end, in the distance where the hallway should have ended, I saw a small shape, sitting, perfectly still, waiting for the light to flicker again. The bear arrived without a box. It was sitting on my porch when I came home from work. No shipping label, no note, no explanation. Just a small gray teddy bear propped carefully against my front door, like someone had placed it there with intention. Its fur looked new, clean, soft, except around the mouth. Around the mouth, the fur was darker, as if it had been damp for a long time. I live alone. No kids, no nieces or nephews. No reason for a stuffed animal to appear at my house. I almost left it there. But it had been raining earlier, and something about the way it was sitting, upright, balanced, felt deliberate. I picked it up. It was heavier than it should have been. Not weighted with beads. Heavier. Dense. Its stitched smile was crooked. One ear slightly torn. The eyes were glass and a pale amber color. They reflected too much light, like they were wet. I brought it inside. I don't know why. That night, the smoke detector went off. Not the alarm, just the low battery chirp. One sharp beep. I stood on a chair and checked it. The battery was fine. When I climbed down, the bear was no longer on the kitchen counter. It was on the dining table, facing the hallway. I stood still for a long time. Then I convinced myself I'd moved it absent-mindedly. People do that. Minds wander. I turned off the lights and went to bed. At 2:02 a.m., the smoke detector chirped again. One sharp beep. From inside my bedroom. I don't have a smoke detector in my bedroom. I opened my eyes. The bear was sitting on my dresser, facing me. The next morning, I threw it in the trash, deep in the bin. under coffee grounds and old food containers. I tied the bag shut. I took it out to the curb. When I came home that evening, the trash bag was still there, untouched, except for a tear near the top. A small, careful tear, just big enough for something to crawl out. The bear was back on my kitchen counter, dry, clean, looking toward the hallway again. I decided to cut it open. I used a box cutter. The fabric parted easily. Inside wasn't stuffing. It was packed tightly with something fibrous and dark. I pulled some out. Hair. Human hair. Clumped. Braided together in tight coils. Underneath the hair, I felt something solid. I reached in and pulled. It was a tooth. Small. Child-sized. There were dozens more, embedded in the hair like seeds. I dropped the bear immediately. It hit the floor with a heavy thud. And from inside, something shifted, not sliding, adjusting. The head turned toward me on its own. The stitched mouth trembled, and the amber glass eyes blinked. Slow, wet. The power went out. The house went silent. No refrigerator hum. No street noise. Just breathing. Soft, uneven, close. The bear was sitting upright again. The slit I'd cut had sealed itself. The fur smooth, unbroken. The mouth began to open. The thread didn't snap. It dissolved, like it was being pulled inward. The smile widened, farther than fabric should stretch. Inside, I saw darkness, depth, movement. A small hand reached out first. Not plush, not porcelain, a real hand. Pale, dirt under the fingernails. Then another, and another. The bear's body swelled as something pushed from within, pressing outward. The seams strained. Its head split down the middle with a wet crack. And from inside climbed a child. Thin, hair matted, eyes the same amber color as the bear's. He stood in my living room, breathing softly. He looked at me. "You brought me in," he said. His voice sounded layered, like more than one throat was speaking. The empty bear collapsed behind him, flat, deflated. The boy took one step forward, and with it, I felt something tighten around my ankle. I looked down. Hair, dark strands wrapping around my leg, coiling upward. More hair spilled from the collapsed bear, flowing across the floor like liquid, wrapping my wrists, my throat. The boy tilted his head. "I needed someone who lives alone," he said gently. "No one listens." The smoke detector chirped again. One sharp beep. And I realized it wasn't a smoke detector. It was a timer. The boy's mouth opened, wider, and behind his teeth, I saw rows of tiny stitched smiles. Layered, stacked, moving. I don't know how long I've been sitting here. The hair is in my lungs now. I can feel it threading through me, growing. I'm still in my house, but I don't think I live alone anymore. There's a small gray teddy bear on my couch. Clean, soft, amber eyes reflecting too much light, waiting on the porch for someone else to bring it inside. The box said, "Buddy Pal," your child's best friend. Bright primary colors, cartoon stars, a smiling doll with soft brown hair and freckles. My son Ethan hugged it before I'd even cut the plastic ties. "It talks," he said, delighted. "It sings. It learns your name." The sales clerk told me it was the safest toy on the shelf. Voice recognition, huggable fabric, soft vinyl face. No sharp edges, no removable parts. "Battery compartment sealed," she said. "Childproof." That night, Ethan slept with Buddy Pal tucked under his arm. At 2:17 a.m., I woke to whispering. Not from the baby monitor, from the hallway. Soft, rhythmic. "Ethan, Ethan." I walked to his door and pushed it open. Ethan was asleep. Buddy Pal lay beside him. Its plastic eyes were open, staring toward the doorway. The voice came again. "Ethan." Its mouth didn't move. In the morning, I checked the battery compartment. It was empty. No batteries. The slot was clean, unused. I turned it over in my hands. No hidden switches, no wires exposed. "Dad," Ethan said from behind me. "He told me your name too." I laughed, though my throat felt tight. "What did he say?" Ethan smiled. "He said he likes it when you blink." The next few days, Buddy Pal behaved normally. It sang when squeezed. It said pre-recorded phrases in a cheerful, synthetic voice. "I love you! Let's play!" But sometimes, when Ethan left the room, I caught it facing the door, as if waiting. Once, I placed it sitting upright against the wall and walked into the kitchen. When I came back, it was on its side, facing the hallway. Another time, it lay on the couch. When I returned, it was upright, perfect posture, hands resting neatly in its lap. Ethan insisted he hadn't touched it. "You're just forgetful," he told me gently, the way adults talk to children. I decided to test it. That night, after Ethan fell asleep, I took Buddy Pal downstairs. I placed it in the center of the kitchen table. I removed the battery cover again. Empty. I set my phone to record video and left it there. At 2:17 a.m., I heard the sound. A faint click. Then another, like something inside adjusting. I watched the live feed from upstairs. The doll sat motionless for a long time. Then, the head turned, slowly, deliberately. It did not jerk. It did not wobble. It pivoted with smooth, mechanical precision until its eyes locked directly onto the camera. The plastic cheeks twitched. The smile widened. The mouth split at the corners. The seam deepened. The soft vinyl stretched. The head tilted slightly to one side, and the voice changed. It was no longer bright and cheerful. It was layered, multiple tones overlapping. "Why are you watching?" it asked. My hands went cold. The recording glitched. Static flickered across the screen. When the image returned, the doll was gone from the table. I heard footsteps in the hallway. Small, measured, upstairs. Ethan screamed. I ran. His bedroom door was closed, locked from the inside. "Ethan!" I shouted. The screaming stopped abruptly. The house went silent. Then I heard the voice, right outside the door. "Dad," it called sweetly. "Help." I grabbed the handle. It wouldn't budge. From inside, a heavy thud. Then the door creaked open an inch, Through the gap, I saw Ethan standing in the center of the room. His arms hung at his sides. Buddy Pal sat on his bed. The doll's head turned toward me. The smile was gone. The face had tightened. The freckles darkened. The eyes no longer reflected light. They absorbed it. The mouth peeled back into something feral, a snarl carved into soft plastic. Teeth pushed through where none had existed. Small, sharp, too many. Ethan's lips moved, but the doll's voice came out. He belongs to me. The doll stood up. The fabric body stretched unnaturally, elongating. The limbs stiffened. Its small hands curled into fists. The suddenness of it stole the air from my lungs. No gradual shift, no subtle movement, just transformation, toy to predator in a breath. It leapt. The impact knocked me backward. Its weight was far heavier than it should have been. Small hands clamped onto my throat, its vinyl face inches from mine. The plastic had cracked, revealing something dark and pulsing beneath. I learn, it hissed. The battery compartment on its back split open. Inside was not circuitry, not wires, but something wet, beating, tiny, alive. I grabbed it and tore at the fabric. The stitching ripped. The stuffing spilled out, and so did small, pale fingers. Dozens. Reaching, grasping. The doll's head twisted fully around. Its jaw unhinged. And for a split second, I saw inside. Not electronics, not hollow plastic, but a cramped, human-sized darkness. Breathing, waiting. I threw it across the room. It hit the wall and slumped. Still, silent. Ethan began crying. The footsteps on the doctor smoothed. The freckles returned. The mouth reshaped into a harmless smile. The eyes blinked, friendly again. A soft, cheerful voice chirped from its mouth. "Let's play." I picked it up. It was light, innocent. The battery compartment hung open, empty. When I looked back at Ethan, he was staring at me, unblinking. His head tilted slightly to one side, and in a voice that wasn't quite his own, he said, "Dad, why are you watching?"
When I was 9, my mother bought the doll the same week my sister stopped speaking. She found it at a thrift store on the edge of town, one of those charity shops that smell like dust and old paperbacks. The woman behind the counter told her it had been donated with no note, no name, no history. It was porcelain, not the pretty kind. Its face was pale and too smooth, like it had been sanded down. The eyes were gray glass, cloudy around the edges. The mouth was slightly open, as if it had just finished whispering something. My sister, Lily, hadn't spoken since the night she woke up screaming. After that, she just watched things. Corners, doorways, the ceiling. She pointed at empty space and shook her head when we asked what was wrong. The doctors said trauma. The priest said imagination. My mother said the doll might help. "It'll give her something to focus on," she told me, setting it gently on Lily's dresser. Lily didn't touch it. She stared at it, and the doll stared back. The first night, I heard Lily laughing. Not giggling, Not the way a kid laughs at cartoons. It was soft, rhythmic, like she was answering someone. I got up and walked down the hall. Her bedroom door was cracked open. The light inside was off, but the street lamp outside threw long, pale bars across the floor. Lily was sitting upright in bed. The doll was in her lap. I know for a fact my mother had left it on the dresser. Lily's hands weren't moving. The doll's head was, slowly turning toward the doorway, toward me. I told myself it was shadows. I told myself porcelain can't move. Then Lily's mouth opened, and in a voice that wasn't hers, she said, "He doesn't like you watching." The next morning, the doll was back on the dresser. Lily was silent again. But something had changed. She wouldn't go near mirrors. She covered the bathroom one with a towel. She turned the one in her room to face the wall. When my mother asked why, Lily shook her head and wrote on a piece of paper. She uses them. My mother took that as more imagination. I didn't. That afternoon, I tested something. I stood in Lily's doorway and looked at the doll. It looked normal, blank, dead-eyed. But when I stepped sideways, lining it up with the mirror in the hallway, I saw it. In the reflection, the doll wasn't sitting. It was standing. Its porcelain legs straight. Its head tilted too far to one side. And it wasn't looking at Lily. It was looking at me. I turned around immediately. The doll was back on the dresser, seated, perfectly still. That night, Lily's door was closed, locked. At 3:07 a.m., something knocked from inside her room. 3 slow taps. My mother woke up. I heard her feet hit the hallway carpet. "Lily?" she called softly. No answer. Another 3 taps. She tried the handle. Locked. She knocked back. "Sweetheart?" The tapping stopped. Then came the sound of porcelain scraping across wood. Slow, deliberate. My mother's voice changed. It wasn't gentle anymore. "Lily, open the door." Silence. Then the door handle began to turn, slowly, from the inside. The door opened. Lily wasn't there. Her bed was empty. The window was closed. The closet door was open. The doll was sitting in the middle of the floor, facing the door, facing us. Its mouth was wider now. Not physically, but somehow wider. My mother rushed in, calling Lily's name. I stayed in the hallway, because in the reflection of the dark TV screen at the end of the hall, I could see Lily, standing behind the doll. Only it wasn't Lily's posture. Her head was tilted the same way as the doll's. Too far. Too wrong. We found Lily in the attic, curled up in the corner, behind old boxes. She was whispering, not crying, whispering, over and over. She wants a better body. My mother grabbed her and pulled her downstairs. The doll was gone from the bedroom floor. We found it back on the dresser. My mother finally decided to throw it out. She wrapped it in a blanket, shoved it into a trash bag, and drove it to a dumpster behind the grocery store. When she came back, Lily was standing in the kitchen, smiling,
It was the first time she'd smiled in weeks. "Is she mad?" Lily asked. Her voice sounded normal again. My mother cried and hugged her. "No," she said. "She's gone." Lily looked past her, over my mother's shoulder, at the hallway, and her smile faded. "She's not." We heard the knocking that night from inside the walls. Not pipes, not settling. Knuckles. 3 slow taps. Moving. Room to room. I slept with my door locked. At 3:07 a.m., my doorknob rattled. Softly. Back and forth. Then came a whisper from the other side. Then Lily. Not my mother. Something dry and brittle. "Mirrors," it breathed. "Open the mirrors." I didn't move. The whisper continued. "I can't stay in the glass forever." The doorknob stopped. Silence. Then, a single sharp crack from the mirror hanging on the back of my door. I turned slowly. A thin fracture ran down the center of the glass. And inside the reflection, the doll was standing behind me, even though my room was empty. Its gray eyes weren't cloudy anymore. They were wet, blinking, and its porcelain mouth opened just wide enough for me to see. Teeth, small, human, pressed tightly behind ceramic lips. The crack in the mirror spread, spidering outward, and from behind the glass, I saw hands, pressing, from the other side, trying to push through, trying to step out. And I understood then. The doll had never been the body. It had only been the doorway. Lily wasn't the first, and I won't be the last. It's 3:07 a.m. again. I can hear the tapping inside the walls. 3 slow knocks, moving closer to my door. And this time, the mirror isn't cracked. It's gone. Because something, or someone, finally came through. When my son swallowed the action figure's hand, I thought that was the worst part of it. I was wrong. The figure came from a gas station clearance bin. Cheap plastic, armored soldier, painted snarl. The packaging had been torn open and retaped. Someone had written a name on the cardboard backing in black marker. Marrow. My son, Caleb, loved it instantly. Carried it everywhere. Slept with it clutched in his fist. 3 days later, I found him in the kitchen crying, holding the figure. The left hand was missing. There was red on his lips. He swore he didn't bite it. I assumed he had. We spent 6 hours in the ER while doctors monitored him. The X-ray showed a small shape in his stomach. They told me it would pass. It didn't. Instead, Caleb started changing. He began standing in corners, not as punishment, by choice. He would press his forehead lightly against the wall and stay there, unmoving, for minutes at a time. When I asked what he was doing, he said, "Listening." Listening to what? The marching. That night, I woke to the sound of something dragging across the hardwood floor. Slow. Plastic against wood. I stepped into the hallway. The action figure stood upright in the center of the floor, balanced perfectly on its tiny boots. It had never been able to stand like that before. Its left arm ended in a jagged stump. The head turned. just slightly, toward Caleb's bedroom. I went to pick it up. It felt warm, almost body temperature. The plastic along the stump had softened, as if something had been growing there. Caleb stopped eating solid food. He said it made the marching louder. He preferred water. He drank constantly. One afternoon, I heard him gagging in the bathroom. I forced the door open. He was hunched over the toilet, shaking. Something small clattered into the bowl. I leaned in. It was the action figure's missing hand. Clean, undigested, perfectly intact. Caleb looked at me with wide eyes. "They gave it back," he whispered. I flushed it immediately. That night, I found the hand on my pillow, attached to the figure, seamless, whole. The marching grew louder. I heard it in the vents, in the pipes, inside the walls. Tiny, synchronized thuds, thousands of them, in rhythm. Caleb began waking at exactly 1:19 a.m. every night. He would sit up in bed, stiff-backed, eyes open. I filmed him once. When I played it back, I saw something I hadn't noticed in the moment. His right hand was moving, small, deliberate motions, like he was saluting. The action figure changed again. The painted snarl had deepened. The plastic around the joints darkened, as if stained from within. And its eyes. They used to be flat black dots. Now they had depth, gloss, pupils. I locked it in the glove compartment of my car. I drove to the river outside town and threw it in. I watched it sink. The water swallowed it completely. I drove home shaking, telling myself it was over. When I opened Caleb's bedroom door that night, he was standing at attention in the center of the room. The action figure rested on his shoulder, balanced, whole. Water dripped from its boots onto the carpet. Caleb's mouth moved. The voice that came out carried a metallic echo. "You will not desert." The marching erupted all at once. The walls trembled. The floor vibrated. And then I felt it, inside my chest. A tiny, synchronized pounding. My heartbeat shifted, matched the rhythm. Left, right. Left, right. Caleb lifted his hands slowly in salute. The action figure's head turned toward me. Its plastic chest cracked open along a thin seam. Inside, I saw movement. Rows upon rows of miniature figures, each one identical, each one marching in place. And inside their hollow chests, something pink, wet, beating. Caleb smiled. "You swallowed one too," he said. I tried to argue, tried to breathe, but my pulse had already aligned. Left, right. Left, right. I could feel them now. Tiny boots striking the inside of my ribs. In formation, waiting for orders. The action figure raised its hand, and somewhere inside me, something saluted back. The first thing I noticed was that the doll's head was breathing. It was on my workbench in the basement, surrounded by parts I'd salvaged from broken toys. I restore antiques for a living. Porcelain faces, cracked music boxes, wind-up soldiers with missing gears. This one hadn't come from a client. I found it in the crawl space under my stairs. A baby doll head. Plastic, not porcelain. The kind with molded lashes and a permanently open mouth shaped into a soft O. One glassy blue eye. The other socket, empty. It had been attached to something once. The neck ring was jagged where it had been snapped free. I set it on the bench and went upstairs. When I came back down, it was turned toward the door. I had left it facing the wall. I stood very still. Old houses shift, vibrate, things roll. But the head hadn't rolled. It had pivoted, balanced perfectly on the torn neck rim. I stepped closer. The lips were slightly parted now. The plastic seemed stretched, and the surface just beneath the skin moved, like something crawling inside. I didn't sleep that night. At 1:42 a.m., I heard a faint tapping from beneath my bed. Not scratching, tapping. 4 quick knocks. Pause. 4 again. A pattern. I lay frozen. The tapping moved, crossed the floorboards slowly, reached the doorway, stopped. I heard a soft plastic click, like a joint bending. Then, silence. In the morning, I went to the basement. The doll head was gone. In its place were 6 thin metal rods, arranged neatly on the workbench, bent slightly at the ends. I recognized them. They were the armature pieces from a vintage marionette I had disassembled weeks ago. I never left them out. The head sat at the far end of the bench, facing me, the empty eye socket darker than it should have been. The rods were no longer separate. They were attached, protruding from the torn neck. 6 of them, splayed outward, like legs. I stepped back. The rods shifted, tiny, precise adjustments, testing balance. The head tilted, one glass eye fixed on me. It began with the stairs. That evening, I heard something moving upward, metal against wood, slow, deliberate. I stood at the top landing and watched. The head emerged first, then the rods. They had pierced through the plastic neck and bent outward, giving it height. It moved with terrible coordination at first, jerking, then smoother, each rod tapping carefully on the step before transferring weight. Clack, clack, clack. The baby mouth opened wider. The hollow O stretched into something more deliberate, a smile that didn't belong on an infant's face. I ran. I slammed my bedroom door, locked it. The tapping resumed on the other side, steady, measured. It paused at the base of the door. Then, one rod slid under the crack. It probed the carpet, followed by another. The wood began to splinter. A thin metal point punched through the door just above the handle, another beside it. They worked in unison, careful, precise. I shoved the dresser in front of the door. The tapping stopped. I held my breath. Minutes passed. Then I heard it. Inside the room, a faint plastic scrape from beneath the bed. I crouched slowly. The underside of the mattress sagged slightly. Something had climbed up the frame. The bed dipped. The weight was light, but intentional. The head rolled into view beside my pillow, upside down. The rods lifted it higher until it hovered inches from my face. The empty eye socket was no longer empty. Inside it, something wet blinked. A real eye. It focused on me. The mouth stretched wider, too wide for molded plastic. The jaw split down the center, cracking, opening. Inside was darkness. Then movement. Small shapes pressed against the inner surface of the head. More doll faces, smaller, layered. Their tiny hands reached outward through the widening crack. The rods tightened around my neck, cold metal digging into skin. The head lowered itself until the cracked mouth pressed against my lips. Something inside inhaled sharply. My vision blurred. My chest felt hollow, as if something were being pulled from me. A pressure built in my throat. Then relief. Sudden, violent. The rods released. The head dropped to the floor. Still, silent. The next morning, I found it back in the basement, on the bench. The rods detached, laid neatly beside it. The crack along the jaw sealed smooth. Only one difference remained. There were two eyes now, both glassy blue, both blinking slowly. And when I looked in the mirror, I noticed something else. My mouth rested open, just slightly, shaped into a small, perfect O. And when I tried to close it, something inside resisted, testing, balancing, learning how to stand.